Hi, I'm Peter Crowley, and this is Money Thoughts, your financial education program that helps you understand how to better manage your money. My co-host today, Deborah Fraser, is off, and our show today is sponsored by Emeritus Retirement Plans. It's a little different today in our show, too. We try to talk about different segments. Today, we're going to talk about the small business segment and things that are important to small business in the retirement plan area. And our guest today is Brian, Gazawi.
That's right.
Great, thank you. And Brian is the Regional Vice President of Retirement Plans with Emeritus. Brian, welcome.
Great. Thanks, Peter.
So give me a little bit about yourself, and then
Sure.
we'll get into some good questions.
Absolutely. But thank you. It's great to be here. So my name is Brian Gazawi. I am the New Jersey Regional Vice President for Emeritus Retirement Plans. So Emeritus is a 135-year-old company founded in 1887. Really a life insurance company at heart, but my role is in our retirement planning division. So I've been in the industry for over 14 years, and I can tell you I absolutely love what I do and certainly privileged. I get to meet with financial professionals, small business owners of all different sorts, and I get to meet with their employee base and educate them on the importance of retirement and retiring early and comfortably.
So retirement plans carry a wide variation. Let's just start by giving our audience a little bit of understanding. What are retirement plans? In the sense of your viewers watching today are going to learn, oh, is it a 401k? Is it a 403b?
Sure.
Is it a SEP? Without going into a whole detail, what are the key retirement plans and what's the focus of having a retirement plan?
Yeah, so a retirement plan is kind of exactly what the name is, right? It's an investment strategy to help you retire. They're typically employer-based, and they also create a tax shelter. And they come in all different sizes, all different shapes. It really depends what the objective of the company and their needs are, or the needs for their employees are. So some companies might have a plan where it's mostly employer money. Some will just be employee money, or a combination of both, where you see like in a 401k plan, that's very common. It's employee money and typically with employer matching.
Now that's different from my father. When he was working, he had a pension.
Sure.
And the phone company gave him a pension, and he knew when he retired, they contributed. He did not contribute.
Yeah.
That's changing today a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say that's probably changed already. So pension plans are definitely something becoming fewer and further between in most industries. They still exist in the private sector, but dwindling quite quickly. And they are still available in government entities and municipalities, so that's where you're seeing them right now. But you're going to see the bulk of retirement plans are going to be employee-based, meaning it's your own money that you contribute. You do receive a tax shelter, and typically your employer will give some type of matching, or in some cases a profit share on top of what you contribute.
So I guess the spectrum has shifted from the company providing you with money to retire to you and the company working together to have that money for you to retire.
I would say that's very accurate, yes.
So in New Jersey, I know that they've created a state-sponsored retirement plan. I'm open to what that is. So can you help our viewers understand what is the New Jersey state-sponsored savings plan?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a pretty new piece that just rolled out. New Jersey is going to be one out of 13 states out of the 50 that have a mandatory retirement plan for certain small businesses. So it was signed in 2019 by Governor Murphy. It was shelved a little bit because of the pandemic, but now it's being rolled out here in 2022. So basically companies that meet the eligibility of having 25 employees or more and being established for 2 years will have to provide an employer-based retirement. And if you have a plan in place already, fantastic. If you don't, then you're going to either have to put one in place, either speak with a financial professional and try to establish what custom plan would be best, like a 401k or a simple IRA or a pension. And if those are not great options for you, you can default into this state-sponsored retirement program.
So now, is this what they call the New Jersey Secure Choice Savings Program?
That's exactly what it is, yes.
So it's basically, for our viewers, a mandated program that the state says, if you don't, as a small business owner, or a nonprofit, I assume, provide your employees with a retirement plan opportunity, the state will come in and say you have to do that.
Exactly. Yes. So, and I'll tell you the state plan, it's very basic. It's very cookie cutter. They will not be providing a match or a profit share that you see with 401ks or simple IRAs or other retirement vehicles that employers will typically utilize. It's really just a practice of remitting your employees' contributions and making sure they go into their retirement accounts. So it's really just a good practice and not particularly an expense to the employer.
So does the state run the plan? Or, I mean, in 401k plans, financial organizations run those, or 403bs. Will the state be the company running that in a sense?
The small business will have to administer, so they're going to keep track of eligibility and the actual contributions of their employees. This state is basically putting everything together. They haven't disclosed who's going to be their money manager, but they are going to provide you with the investment options of diverse portfolio selections, large cap funds, mid cap funds, target date based funds, things of that nature. So a lot of details have not come out. The program was originally slated to roll out on March 28th, and the state of New Jersey is a little bit behind on that right now. But that's something they do expect to have fully rolled out by this year, just a little bit off track.
So will this be impacting all New Jersey businesses with 25 employees or more?
Yes, as long as they've been around for 2 years, and it's also the language, it includes part-timers. So anyone over 25 employees will be impacted. And my guess is, like other states, because we're now one of 13 states doing this. Our neighbors in New York will be implementing this year. New York State, Connecticut is probably next year. We've seen California already have it for several years. They're going to start at 25 for New Jersey. Probably in 12 months.
I'm sorry, Brian, is that full-time employees or part-time employees or a combination of both?
It's a combination. The language actually says all employees.
Okay.
So when you take a look at those 25 employees, and we're going to have this conversation in 12 months, I wouldn't be surprised if they scale that down to 15, 10, or 5, because New York City is going to be introducing theirs next, and theirs is going to be 5 employees.
Okay, so they're really bringing it down to small independent businesses.
They really do. And there's great reason for that. Americans certainly need to retire, and they need to retire comfortably. So if you take a look at retirement plans being offered to small businesses, only about 1/3 of all small businesses actually have a retirement plan in place. And that's measured by 20 employees or less. If you look at the other side of the spectrum, corporate America, for example, 99% of corporate America offers retirement plans when you take a look at a company that has 5,000 employees or more. So when you look at corporate America and you look at municipal entities that have a pension, everything in between is not being focused on. And right now, that's the whole agenda and the objective of this secure choice.
That's depressing. I didn't know that was a number. Wow.
I didn't mean to sour the mood, but it is depressing. And a part of my job is to provide that education to employees.
So if I'm a business owner and for some reason I do not have a plan in place right now, I have a choice. I can either go to a traditional 401k plan, which has some higher flexibility in some areas.
Yes, correct.
Or I can go to a state-sponsored plan.
Yes.
How do I make that decision? How do you help that business person make that decision?
Sure, absolutely. I think what you want to do is always meet with your financial professional. If you don't have one, I certainly advise trying to meet one. A local one is ideal. And you're going to want to see if a customizable plan, and we're going to use a 401k as an example, if they can tailor that plan to suit your objective. So for example, one of the things I've noticed in today's marketplace, and I meet with all different businesses, big businesses, small businesses, blue collar, white collar, service, manufacturing, you name it. The commonality between all business owners is they're having a difficult time finding quality employees. So if you want to attract top talent and retain your top talent and reduce employee turnover, looking at a retirement plan that has a nice benefit might be ideal, because that can really help you with all those issues right now, and we're certainly seeing that across the board.
So I understand that the backstop is the state plan, but on a 401k plan, what are the benefits for an employee to have one if his company offers it and not to defer to the state plan?
Yeah, so from the employer side, there's a lot of tax write-offs if they provide a match. It's a major perk or benefit to the employees. And that's really quite ideal in most circumstances. In comparison to the state plan or like a traditional IRA that you might open at a bank or on an online platform, you have 3.5 times the contribution limit for the employees. So employees could put $20,500 of their own money in a tax-sheltered investment vehicle for retirement. And if you're over 50, that actually jumps to $27,000. And currently, a lot of 401k platforms, including mine, we allowed you to do Roth contributions. And that's really important nowadays because you can pay your taxes today and never have to worry about taxes on the appreciation over your career.
That's a pretty good way to look at it. Now, you mentioned the higher limits. I'm an employee. I'm working for a company. My take-home pay is probably in the $40,000 or $50,000. I can't afford to give that much.
Sure.
Can I still contribute part of what I'm doing over time to make sure I have a retirement plan?
Absolutely. I mean, for the employees, I always say anything you can afford. It's a funny little stat, but most Americans actually spend more money on coffee than they do for their retirement. And if you break down what a typical...
Push this aside right now. Wait a minute.
This could be going to our retirement accounts. If you take a look at most 25 to 35-year-olds, they're not putting anything in their retirement account. It's, like I said, they're spending more on coffee, right? And that typically translates to be about $2,000 a year.
Right.
We all need coffee, but maybe we can start with proper education is scaling back on some of those expenses. And when your employer has a 401k and they're providing a match, if you can only put in that example, if you can only put in 2%, that's still a decent amount where your employer is now going to match, right? So if that translates to be $1,000, your employer is probably going to match. Typically, the benchmark is about 4%. They'll match you that $1,000. So you just doubled your money.
So you're almost saying if you don't involve yourself in a plan as an employee, you give up free money because the company is going to be providing a match or give you some sort of money in that.
Most cases, there are matches, and you are leaving free money on the table, and you're also leaving that tax sheltering on the table. Because opposed to investing inside of a plan, you get that tax shelter. You invest money outside of a plan, you're going to pay taxes on dividends, capital gains, things like that.
Yeah, and the tax shelter for our viewers means that the money in there continues to grow tax-free and compounds, which long-term is in your benefit.
Yeah, typically it's actually in traditional 401k or IRA, it's actually tax-deferred. There is a
it's tax-deferred. I said tax-free.
It's a taxable event when you distribute, but if you opt to make a Roth contribution, you pay
then it's tax-free.
Then it's tax-free. And that's really ideal for the younger generations, 20s, 30s, 40s. Probably want to pay your taxes today.
So give me some reasons why a business may want to consider a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a wide array of reasons. Kind of going back to what I originally said with turnover and retaining top talent. It's a very competitive marketplace right now. And a lot of companies, and I did mention before, only about 1/3 of small companies offer it. And kudos to those 1/3 that do. But for my personal feedback, I don't think a lot of those companies do a great job educating their employees on the plan because participation still tends to be very low. So if you're an employer and you're going to be paying for retirement benefits, it will probably behoove you to educate your employees on this, and it will certainly engage them more. The money that the ownership puts in, management puts in, obviously it's tax deferred. And what's really unique about a 401k plan, there's a built-in feature called a discretionary profit share. So for example, your company does really well in 2021, and you're looking for additional tax write-offs. So nobody's really looking for tax write-offs on December 31st. I think we're all preoccupied. The beauty of a profit share, it's discretionary, and when you meet with your accountant in the first quarter or second quarter of 2022 for your 2021 year, you can still profit share, which counts as a business write-off. So for example, if your accountant suggests, hey, why don't we lose $50,000 in write-offs, we can actually apply that to 2021. And profit sharing is quite unique. There's different formulas to profit share. There's formulas where we could give all your eligible employees a flat dollar, a flat percentage, or we could actually do something called new comparability. It's actually what we do is we skew the profit sharing in favor of ownership and upper management. So ownership and upper management might get the lion's share of that profit share.
But still, it goes to the employees too.
And then, yes, then the remainder will then be spread across your employees. And in that example, now you have a $50,000 additional deduction for the year before.
So we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little more about the New Jersey Savings Plan, and we're going to talk about what happens if you don't put one in place. This is Money Thoughts with Peter Crowley. Hi, I'm Peter Crowley. We're back with Money Thoughts. Our guest today is Brian Gazawi from Retirement Plans. And Brian, we were talking about sort of the benefit for an employee to have a retirement plan and why it's so important. And I guess sometimes when you're 25 or 30, you don't think about what's going to happen when I'm 65 or when I'm 70. It's so far in the future. But there are really sort of a number of reasons why you should start even with just $50 a week. Can you talk about what that compounding can help and how that money going in helps you long term?
Sure, absolutely, I'd love to. And that's one of the things I like to talk about, and it's made it definitely a perk of my job is educating people who may not be aware of this. So the biggest variable with retiring comfortably or even retiring early is time. Time is the ultimate variable you have. And with a 401k retirement plan, you're contributing every paycheck. So that might be every 2 weeks or every week, depending on the company. So when you take a look at those variables, you don't have to be a millionaire to become a millionaire if you have time and consistency on your side. There's so many different little examples and marketing pieces you can find, and on social media there's a lot of things. But a quick statistic is if you're putting $2,000 in your retirement plan a year, and maybe you're putting $1,000 in and your employer's matching you $1,000, and that's how you're getting to that $2,000. If you do that over a 30-year career, that's $60,000. But when you take a look at compounding, that's going to equal $250,000. So
compounding meaning the money that you're making on your money stays there, then you make more money on that money too.
Exactly. And that statistic is based off of an 8% return, which is fairly conservative in this marketplace. Especially the stock market's been a little rough of recent, but historically speaking, it's actually outperformed 8%. So I'm just kind of being a little conservative with numbers. But that's what $2,000 a year looks like for 30 years. So when I explain that to employees, and I go into a factory or a warehouse and I show them these statistics and marketing pieces, I can see the engagement. And I encourage employers that do have retirement plans in place, you want to educate, you want a local advisor to come on in and educate their employees on these things, because it's only going to engage them more, and it's going to allow them to create the right retirement habits to have a safe and happy retirement years.
Now you sometimes hear, oh boy, if I give that money, I can't touch it till I'm 70. What if I need it in 10 years? You can take loans against your 401k.
Yes.
Can you do that in the state plan also?
Yeah, so the state plan is going to be a little bit unique. You aren't going to have the same type of flexibility as you do with a 401k plan. So 401ks, you can take loans. I really don't suggest it unless you're in a pinch.
Right.
I have people that will tell me they took a 401k loan to go to Disneyland. I don't recommend that, but you certainly can. And then what you do is you actually pay yourself back with a small amount of interest. And that kind of keeps you honest and keeping skin in the game. Now, if you're really in a pinch and you need to take a distribution, it's typically a taxable event with a penalty attached to it. But there are a lot of reasons for personal and emergencies that you can take a distribution.
I think education is one, and building your first house or other.
Yes,
that you can take a distribution and not pay the penalty, but you then do pay taxes.
Yeah, it will become a taxable event at that point, because you never paid taxes when that money entered the retirement plan.
Right.
And if you're on a tax deferred, like a traditional IRA or traditional deferral in your 401k, you didn't pay the tax when the money entered, so you're always going to pay the tax when the money distributes.
So as an employee, when I provide my donation to my account, we'll call it the retirement plan account. If I were to run into an emergency, a medical emergency, or some kind of emergency I didn't expect 10 years from now or 15 years, I could take some of that money out. It isn't gone from me.
Oh.
But I then would pay it back by paying interest to myself.
Correct.
On that money.
Yeah, if you take a loan, then yes, that's fine. A distribution is when the money comes out, you can't put it back in. And remember, the whole concept of a retirement plan, it's a really good program. And there's a reason why the IRS puts a cap on employee and employer contributions. They don't want you to take too much advantage of it. So you do have a finite amount of money. So if you're taking a distribution, you can't put the money back in. If you're taking a loan, you can pay yourself back and put the money back in.
So we started off talking about really the business side of this, and to ask the question, why wouldn't a company provide a retirement plan for their employees? And now that the state mandates that, if they don't, what happens?
Yeah, so if you don't have one in, like most types of mandates or anything like that, there's going to be consequences. So there is a financial or a monetary fine that will be applied at some point. I believe it's going to be $100 per eligible employee, and then subsequent fines will follow, and they're going to up the fines.
So when do so I'm a business, for whatever reason, I don't offer a plan. I understand the state now mandates it, but I still, for whatever reason, don't offer a plan. Who tells them that I'm not offering a plan? And then when do they find me?
Sure. Being that the plan or this program hasn't rolled out yet, and it was supposed to roll out on March 28th, and they're a little behind schedule, what's going to happen is there is a council that was put in place to monitor this, the New Jersey Secure Choice Board. What they're going to do is they work very closely with the state of New Jersey's Department of Treasury. Mm-hmm. So most likely what's going to happen is when you do your company taxes, they're going to see that you didn't have a plan in place, and that's when a warning will occur, and then a fine will occur after that.
So as the company, the risk I run by not putting this plan in is when I file my taxes, they're going to say, well, they're going to say there's no plan.
Correct.
And they're going to come after you and say, because there's no plan, we're going to fine you. Are they going to fine you right away?
Well,
and does the fine fall off if you then put a plan in place?
So the fine will fall off if you put a plan in place or join the state plan. The language is a bit vague because it hasn't rolled out yet, but it looks like you're going to get a formal warning first and then a fine. But I wouldn't want a business to just put this in place because they have to. I think it's something that you want to have an open mind towards, because I meet with so many business owners, and a lot of them could be very dismissive at first and say, you know what, I don't want to do something. It's going to be an extra expense, extra administration. I just don't have time for this, or I don't see the value in this. And then when you sit down and you can break through and really explain that, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner, we can create a plan that's really tailored to what you want to do. Are you trying to reduce your employee turnover? Because we can do that, and it's really not a large expense. Are you looking to put away money for yourself, a family-run business? Do you want the husband and wife and children who work there, they can all max out their employee contributions? So a lot of times when you actually run these numbers, the amount of tax write-offs for the employer side, it really washes away all the expenses. And that's a very common occurrence. So that's why I encourage most small businesses, don't delay, try to get ahead of this. Like I said, it's 25 employees. If your employee count is 15, there's probably a good chance.
Do it anyways.
Yeah, it's probably going to impact you 12 months down the road. They're probably going to restrict it more. But definitely explore. There's no harm with working with your local financial advisor or looking to network with a financial advisor and just run the numbers and see what works for you. And if the state plan is the best option,
right,
go with it.
So now I would assume there are safeguards that as a small business, which has a family-owned business and has family members, you can't skew it so the family members get everything. And the employees get nothing, which is, there are safeguards, correct?
Correct.
Good.
You can't discriminate with things like that. But when you do things like profit sharing, and I was talking about that's a discretionary option,
right,
where you actually can skew it in favor of ownership and rank and file employees. So typically I would say 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 times when we run these profit share calculations, it actually does benefit ownership more. But other than that, you have to be completely fair. What you offer yourself, you have to offer everyone that's eligible.
So I understand there are clearly intangibles. You get a way to keep your staff working better, a benefit to them to work with you. So when you look at, as a small business owner, I got to make a decision. Do I go with a 401k plan or a Roth 401k plan, or do I go with a state-sponsored plan? What are the differences? What is that small business owner thinking about when he makes that decision?
Yeah, and there's all different retirement plans. So I don't want to necessarily pigeonhole you just to a 401k. There's simple IRAs, there's SEPs, which are basically pensions. But let's use the 401k as an example because I feel it's the most flexible of all. You have a 3.5 times higher contribution limit for your employees.
With the 401k versus state?
Okay. The state. Because the state program is basically the same contribution limit as an IRA that you would open up at the bank.
Okay.
It's $6,000 for this current year. Really not much. It's great for someone. It's better than nothing, of course. But if you're really looking to shelter some money, then a 401k makes a lot more sense. You can create vesting schedules, meaning an employee has to be with you for X amount of years, and if they were to leave the company, they would forfeit all or a percentage of the money the employer matched to them during that time
Not their
period.
money they put in,
No.
just what the employee matched.
Your money is always your money.
Well, that's a good question, not to jump in, but I put money, I'm an employer in a small business, I put my money in and I leave. I take that money with me?
You can, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, good.
Typically what people will do is with their new employer, they can roll their assets to, let's say there's a 401k in place with their new employer, they can roll the assets over, or they can roll it into an IRA, or they could take a check, which I highly discourage because that's a penalty and a taxable event. But yeah, you can roll your assets over, and that's what that term rollover means.
So one of the things I hear in talking to people, younger people, is Social Security is not going to be there when I get older. It will be there as I get older, but it's not going to be there for my sons. That's what they think about. Can you talk a little about the changes Social Security has gone through that is making it less impactful today than it was 20 years ago?
Well, Peter, that's the million-dollar question. Nobody really knows what Social Security is going to look like in the future. I could tell you a little about what it looks like now and how it looked in the past. So I think some of the challenges that you have regarding relying on Social Security, and unfortunately a lot of Americans don't have retirement plans in place, and that is their retirement plan, and it typically only covers half of their actual needs in their retirement years of their life. So it's really not enough. What we can see happen with the Social Security system, maybe it'll not be there at all, but I think most likely we're going to see the age of collecting probably get deferred as Americans are living longer. We've seen that happen already.
I think it has.
It has, yeah. It certainly has. I would probably expect we'll see another hike or two at some point. And I think the other thing that's important is if you take a look at the Social Security Fund and how it's invested, it's actually invested in U.S. Treasuries. These are very safe, low returning, low yielding bonds in a sense. And you take a look at today's inflation rates, what they're getting in the Social Security Fund in returns is not going to offset today's inflation rates. So you're going to have a shortcoming or a deficit. I always like to say, with retirement in general, imagine a stool. You need 3 legs to take a seat at very minimum. If you have more than that, then great. But Social Security is probably going to be a leg of that stool. Your qualified retirement plan, so your IRA or your 401k is probably going to be the second. And then your third leg of that stool could be an insurance product like an annuity. It could be just your investment account, investment properties, whatever, savings. But you're going to really need 3 different avenues at minimum to retire comfortably. And if you can get another avenue, fantastic. That'll just make your retirement more comfortable, or the ability to retire early.
It's important that small businesses listen and learn and hopefully put together plans. I'm Peter Crowley. This is Money Thoughts. We appreciate you viewing, and we'll see you next time.